Super Round has been run and done. Lockie and I have made it through. We're back for a podcast this week. The Waratahs have gone down to the Western Force. The Brumbies have also continued their losing ways. Pressure's really starting to build on Stephen Larkham now. Are the Force Smokies to be the best Aussie Super Rugby team? All this and more in this weekend's episode of Scrumbags Rugby Podcast. Let's get into it.
Hearing from the crowds that you're tough as woodpecker.
Apologising for kicking a drop goal.
Max Jorgensen, no, he didn't. Oh my goodness me! Ross there, Ross! He's got the record. Tom Wright is too good. This is ecstasy for Wallaroos fans.
Welcome back to the Scrumbags Rugby Podcast. We are your one-stop shop for everything Aussie rugby. Now, Lockie and I, this time last week, we were on our flights back from Super Round, back from Christchurch to our hometown, Sydney and Brisbane. We managed to get through the weekend, an incredible weekend. Massive thank you to Super Rugby Pacific, to New Zealand Rugby and Ella Ferguson for giving us that media accreditation last week. Lockie, you're alive. You made it through what was an incredible weekend out in Christchurch.
Alive barely, Mitch. It was such an awesome experience. We do apologise that we couldn't get a pod out last week, but frankly, we were completely shagged. And after the weekend we had running around, filing from the sideline, getting your content across on the Patreon and on socials, we just didn't have it in us. So next time for sure, we'll be able to roll one out. But we can give you a bit of a taste of what it was like now, Mitch, because the access that we got from NZRU, from Super Rugby to go sideline, helped out by a couple of our mates, of course, and bring people back in Australia in particular, just a little bit of the energy that was that weekend in Christchurch. I've never experienced anything like it around the 15s game. The closest I can think and link it to, Mitch, is probably like the early days of the Sydney Sevens when it was absolutely heaving. It was that and some.
Yeah, what was awesome, and if you haven't checked out our content, it is on our Instagram page, so do go there. If you're not a Patreon subscriber as well, make sure you're subscribing there because there's heaps of content that we did with interviews, players, pre-match and post-match on our Patreon feed. So all of our Super Rugby content, Super Round content is on the Patreon feed. Do make sure you're subscribing. But talking a little bit about Super Round, like you said there, Lockie, the biggest thing for us as rugby fans was being over there and was just being embraced by the rugby community. Like, you perfectly summed up. It was a festival of rugby. It very much had that sort of sevens world stop feel to it. There was packed out crowds 3 days across the weekend, jerseys everywhere. Like, you actually went to Christchurch and could feel that Super Rugby was taking over the town. Melbourne, to its credit, did Super Round for 3 years and didn't really get itself going. You'd go down there, you'd get off the plane, you would walk around the city. You wouldn't even know that Super Round was being held. But you couldn't go anywhere in Christchurch without seeing some kind of retro jersey. And the fans that were out in force, there was flags, there was singing, there was entertainment. It was just, you could not miss the fact that Super Round was happening that weekend in Christchurch.
Yeah, I think they put it at about 4,000 Aussies flying across the ditch, 13,000 people travelled to Christchurch in total, and a massive injection. They've gone well above the projected 6 million into the local economy. It's going to be more like double figures by the time they tally it all up, which is amazing because it deserved it. The stadium was great. I think Matt Giddo said it best when we did some stuff with the Cocoa Boys, right? It's shit all over Melbourne. It pales in comparison. It's not even worth trying to draw the two together. Christchurch has to be the home for at least the next 3 to 4 years for mine, Mitch. We already see that. We're already seeing reports out of Auckland that the Blues want to host it, they want to steal it. Eden Park will not have the same energy and atmosphere. Having the roof on that brand new stadium in Christchurch, the sound, the proximity to the city, these are all things that need to be kept in Christchurch and consolidated. We know rugby, especially Super Rugby, loves to go beyond itself. We love to overreach, whether it's new teams, new ideas, For goodness sake, you've got a good thing here. So keep it rolling, because I don't know about you, but that's probably the most fun I've had on a rugby weekend ever as a fan. So I would love to see it stay there. And the games that we got, we probably won't go into too much detail because it is a week down the line, but I think we saw some absolute crackers there. Like Tahs put up a great fight. Reds Blues went to Super Point. Brumbies were pretty disappointing overall, but the energy in that crowd was so good.
I think what the best thing about this weekend and looking across what Super Round was in the past, like the highlight from Super Round, the first 3 iterations, was the rugby played on the field. And if you look across, and particularly from our perspective, the highlights of the weekend actually wasn't the rugby on the field. If anything, that was probably the worst part of the weekend, give or take. And it wasn't bad by any measure. So that just goes to show how good it was. The festival atmosphere, the packed out stands, the people around, the atmosphere, the food, the drink, the community vibe that it had there. Like that was what Super Round was and needed to be. And then going into the actual competition itself, the pretty disappointing results across the 3 days or the 2 days from the Aussie perspective.
Yeah, for sure. And like it was pretty funny. We're sitting with a great bunch of fellow creators as well. Shout out to the boys at Super Smack who did a wonderful job sort of collabing with us and giving us a good Kiwi perspective, keeping us level as we went 0-3 over the course of the weekend. Thanks very much, Jay. But it was, I think that's the highlight for me, seeing rugby celebrated, not just in person and with fans. You couldn't walk sideways without bumping into an old Team X jersey, but just seeing how engaged people were online as well, and the envy, like the green-eyed monster coming out for people who wanted to be over in Christchurch but weren't. And it's partially down to the opportunities that we were given to share that, to be sidelined, to put that up. So again, like having that access was awesome. And I think we're going to see more of that, not just in Super Round, but across Super Rugby. Like already think of the cut through that people like Lima Sapawanga got.
Yeah.
Shout outs to like the other guys that did content with us. Some of the girls, Liv and Georgia, were amazing doing sideline stuff. There was so much energy and excitement about not just being there, but showcasing it and making it a desirable weekend to attend. So I think it's only going to get bigger from here. And I can't wait, to be honest. I'd love to do it again.
Yeah, there's a few things which I'm keen to get your thoughts on, like what you would change in future if there were things that maybe weren't that hit the mark across the weekend. But yeah, like you said, the coverage and the buy-in from Super Rugby to embrace the content creators like us was awesome. And I think this has hopefully been like a line in the sand, and the people running the game now need to realize that, people like us, we're happy to put our money into it. Like we paid our way. Yes, we got access from Super Rugby, and we're really appreciative of that. But we weren't flown over there. We didn't have our accommodation covered. Like we paid ourselves to be there out of pocket, and it's a passion project for us. We're happy to do it. We love to do it. Just give us that content. Like this, it really isn't that hard to give us the content and the access that we had over the weekend from a organizer's perspective. So if we can get that kind of coverage back home in Australia as well, just the sideline stuff, 5 minutes on the sideline pre-game while the players are warming up. The space isn't being taken by anyone else. It's not too hard to do, but it punches through into the general consumer market so much more than what you're going to get from Stan Sport and things where it is quite hard to actually package that up and get it out in people's feed straight away. So yeah, it was great. I hope we can see a little bit more of that as the competition rolls on. Lockie, thoughts for you? Was there anything that you would like to change about Super Rugby if you were to do it again in future?
Yeah, for sure. Next time we'd love flights. We'd like to be put up at preferably the Grand Chancellor, somewhere nice, central, not too expensive. We won't take a suite. I think
at least a game of golf every day.
Yeah, any perks. See, this is why we need to spend more time with the Coco boys. They've got the perks down pat. They're phenomenal at it. They've made a proper junket career. I think that what could be done to improve, is it the weekend as a whole, or is it just like the creative side, like what we were able
whatever you think, if there's anything that you would like across Super Round as a product, what would you change if you had to change something?
Well, it was something that you raised in our chat with Jack Mesley as well, and something that we'd sort of discussed before that interview. So please go to our socials, go to our Patreon for the full chat there. Incorporating the Wallaroos and Black Ferns. I think it was great to see that game get a decent crowd despite the poor weather up at Sunny Coast. I think they had over 6,000 packed into that boutique stadium, which looked great and sounded great. But that, as part of Super Round, I think is the perfect way to get more eyeballs on the women's international game and showcase them in front of a captive audience who otherwise might not have been considering watching. They might not have understood. Perhaps they didn't want to for whatever reason. But I think that folding elite women's test rugby into Super Round, especially given next year, it is highly likely that we will only have 5 games as we did this year, but as a result of Moana probably not being part of it for 2027. Why not have 2 games across the long weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and on ANZAC Day have one Trans-Tasman Super game along with the women's test? It, to me, is a no-brainer and a fantastic way to open up Super Round, perhaps to new people, because by and large, it was a very male-dominated crowd. A lot of men, some families, but the atmosphere was very much like go out, have a drink, lots of boys' trips, lots of old footy catch-ups, which is terrific. Perhaps this is an offering and a way for other people to be included into Super Round as well. Cast the net a little bit wider. And I would love to see the Wallaroos and the Black Ferns celebrated and included as part of that spectacle. So that for me is top of the pops. Otherwise, junkets.
Yeah, well said. I think there's a few things that I picked up over the weekend, and we'll talk a little bit about some news that's actually come out this week that might affect that viability of when they play Super Round next year, which is exciting to talk about. But for mine, I think what we need to see is a change up of the scheduling. I think having the 3 Aussie teams play Fridays and both on Saturday meant that on Sunday and everyone left, all the Aussies left, and I went to the stadium. My flight was I had to be at the airport halfway through that first game, so I didn't actually get into the stadium to watch any of the games on Sunday, but just hung around the stadium outside to see what the vibe was. Few Brumbies jerseys, few Reds jerseys hanging around for people that, made a weekend of it. But by and large, like the Australian media pack were out of there on Sunday morning. Like it didn't feel as much like people were hanging around across the weekend. And I feel like if you really want to embrace the Trans-Tasman, the Pacific element of the competition, we need to probably put an Aussie-Kiwi derby on Friday, Saturday and Sunday. I think with the change of Moana Pacifica potentially not being in the competition next year, that then brings the Force in. So potentially you're looking at, Sunday afternoon you're playing Highlanders Force, which is a bit of a different aspect. You get Aussie fans who are willing to then stick around across the 3 days. I think that was that's something that could be looked at next year. The other element, which is difficult, is in that I don't really know how, it's probably a harsh thing to say, but I was actually honestly shocked how much NRL and Warriors support there was in Christchurch across the weekend. We were standing on the concourse for that Waratahs Crusaders game, and I was standing next to these blokes next to me. They were talking to me about the Waratahs and stuff. Didn't really know what they were talking about, being Kiwi fans, which is fine, but they're talking about it. But the conversation quickly turned into, "Oh, mate, we're looking forward to watching the Warriors play tomorrow," and rah, 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 rah. We're at Super Round. We're here for the rugby, and you're talking about league. How did we get onto this so quickly? And it was pretty evident on Saturday afternoon during that Reds game, in the lead up to it, that how many fans were leaving after that Brumbies game to go and watch the Warriors game that was kicking off at, I think, 8 o'clock local time. There was streams and streams of people in all areas leaving the competition. And there was a few blokes behind us. One of them was wearing an Auckland Blues jersey and saying, "Yeah, I'm a Blues fan, but I'm a Warriors fan first, so I'm leaving." Across the weekend, you'd rather go and watch the Warriors play league on TV instead of being at Super Round when you've got a ticket for that game. You're there the afternoon. I think it is worrying signs. We hear it spoken a little bit about in the media around how the NRL is getting a grip in New Zealand and there is support for the Warriors and how well they're going. Seeing it firsthand, it is actually worrying.
Yeah, the Warriors thing was an interesting side product of Super Round, right? There were so many jerseys. It's very much part of the cultural zeitgeist in New Zealand at the moment, was culture. Off the back of, I think they made a preliminary final. They got very close to playing a grand final, maybe 2023 or 24. And since then, there's been this massive kick on in support for this side. I remember seeing a pop-up a couple of years ago in New Zealand when they had a home final and you could stick your arm into a box and you'd get a Flash Warriors tattoo off a sheet and you didn't know which one you were going to get. So it really is part of the Kiwi psyche at the moment. And a lot of the media reports that have come out in the recent months and probably dating back a few years now is that the club game in New Zealand is struggling. I'm not talking about NPC, that's got its own problems, but premier club level and grassroots footy, they are having less and less players, especially front rowers, and more people are either just putting down tools or they're being drawn to league. So how I would sort of respond, Mitch, is to say that Super Round was not perfect. It was excellent, but it is not yet the captivating thing that it can be for these kinds of these fair weather fans. Like if you're a Blues guy and you're a Wars guy, I think that's why you need to keep it consistent and make it this desirable product, because the next year you go, oh geez, like those games are amazing at Super Round. I'll have to stay for the whole time. The trick with the Wars that weekend is that they were playing in Wellington for the first time in ages, and then sold out the cake tin. So there was a lot of excitement about that too. And it's not about, you can't be a league and a union fan. It is weird though to see someone with a ticket go like, oh, I'm just going to go down to the pub and miss the second half of this game or whatever, so I can watch
the whole game. I think honestly, just
me.
buy into it. And if you're gonna have the Wars game being kicked off at 7 or 8 o'clock, put it on the big screen. Like, who's there to watch the Reds and the Blues anyway? They're the two most hated teams in the competition. Maybe we just, have a buy and put the Wars game on and everyone wins.
Link it up. It's actually Wallabies, All Blacks, and then the Wars play on the same field. So that's the perfect way to fuse it all together. But I think that's where you're heading around this sort of ANZAC Day stuff, is it not?
That is very much where we're going to go now. And some news that has broken this week. This isn't actually officially confirmed yet. It's sort of being spoken about as if it is, in final negotiation. We haven't got an official confirmation that this is happening in 2027. But if you read the reports, you believe the whispers that's going on, it very much looks like ANZAC Day or ANZAC weekend in 2027, we will see a Bledisloe Cup test between the All Blacks and the Wallabies. Lockie, how excited are you if this gets up? And if this actually goes ahead, how excited would you be to see that test go?
I am not as excited as I thought I was going to be. So this is the reports coming out of the New Zealand Herald that we're referring to, that's saying they're very close to sealing this deal. And it's something that we've spoken about a lot of. It's been floating around lots of podcasts, particularly in Australia, as why aren't we doing this? Let's drive this as the flagship test of the year. Trans-Tasman calendar, we know that the Rugby Championship now is kind of fizzled out. It's whatever, every second year, because of the Kiwis and the Saffers playing in their own sandpit, and we need a showpiece. I actually think that if they're going to do this on ANZAC Day, they're going to take all the momentum they've just driven into Super Round, and they'll therefore change that weekend. There therefore won't be the onus on Trans-Tasman games to tie into ANZAC. And I actually think that it's a backward step to break up the momentum that Super Rugby is starting to gain if you just shoehorn this Bledisloe test into the middle of the super season without consideration about how or where or why it's played. That's why I want the women's test to be there. I think it's a more holistic view of the weekend and the commercial drive for 3 full days rather than a one-off ANZAC Day test. Now, I love the idea in of itself, but it seems like it's strange timing to me when Super Round has been so phenomenally successful at playing Trans-Tasman footy and putting that on the big stage. I also see the benefits commercially and as a fan to have ANZAC Day rugby. We've been wanting it for some time in some respects, but it feels just a little strange that now, after Super Round, this is the go. So my question, I guess, back to you is, obviously you're very excited and so am I in parts, but like how would this work? Would it be a break in Super Rugby, or would we sort of play B-sides around them as part of Super Round? What's your understanding, or what's your hope?
I don't think we have time in the calendar to pause the competition for 3 weeks for one test. So I think what it ends up doing is creating 2 or 3 weeks of lesser teams. And so teams like the Hurricanes and the Crusaders will be the most impacted because they'll have less of their All Blacks available. I actually don't hate that from a competition perspective. They do that in the NRL. When it gets to Origin, they'll play league games through that period. And there's always that debate of like the teams that are going well have more Origin stars, and so therefore are more impacted by it. I don't hate that. I almost see that as a sort of a leveling system in the competition. It then all of a sudden puts teams like, the Western Force or the Drua, gives them a leg up. It gives them an opportunity to get back up the top of the competition if they're playing 2 or 3 weeks of a comp without international stars playing. My question to you, actually, I'm going to throw it back. Do you think Super Round works if you don't play it on ANZAC weekend?
I think that it could work, but I love the fact that Anzac Day ties in so nicely with national holidays on both sides. You create a long weekend. I know that is the day after Anzac Day is a holiday in New South Wales, from my understanding.
Well, that only happens if Anzac Day falls on a weekend.
Yes,
like it did this year. So if it falls on a Thursday, then Anzac Day itself is the public holiday. If it falls on a Tuesday, that fucks everything up.
yeah, this is true. So you can't rely on the calendar. I think I like the way that the Anzac weekend ties together Super Round. We are ostensibly a trans-Tasman competition with Fiji. The Pacific element has been sort of overplayed, I think, in my book. So I prefer it to be there, but I would be incredibly hyped about an Anzac Day Test if it was folded into Super Round. I share your view that actually having that in the background as a conversation piece, Wallabies, All Blacks getting pulled out of Super Rugby to prepare while Super Rugby continues, I love that. I share that enthusiasm for seeing new players come to the fore as a leveling thing.
Can I jump in here?
All in the one big Super Round.
Can I jump in here? Just a thought. Yeah. What would actually be cool is if, say you play it on Anzac weekend, and then you've got 2 weeks lead up where probably the Wallabies and All Blacks players go into camp, aren't playing Super Rugby, competition continues, and then probably a week after, you would think that before they'd go back to their super teams, play Super Round that weekend, the weekend after. So you've got all your stars playing in the Anzac Bledisloe Test. Then they have a week off, and then that weekend after, when all the All Blacks and Wallabies players are available for selection for their club teams, that's when you play Super Round. And so then you start to market of, come to Super Round, everyone's playing this weekend in Christchurch, and all the Wallabies and All Blacks players are back, and they must be selected. Does that not then just create a whole nother element of something? I mean, it could backfire, because you go to teams like, the Reds, the Crusaders and the Hurricanes, like I said before, when all of a sudden they were doing all right, or they were performing for 3 weeks without their All Blacks players, all of a sudden these guys come in and they don't know what they're doing and they lose by 50.
I mean, look, it is an important conversation piece, and ultimately more people go to Test Rugby than Super Rugby. Just a matter of fact, Test Rugby is our premium product. NRL and AFL, that is their only product. So we have an advantage there. So let's play.
I think Inside Line put up a really interesting idea, and I don't know if it was someone that actually wrote in and suggested it, or if it was just something they were discussing. But if you're going to do it, lean into it and actually embrace it. And so go do an under 20s Junior Wallabies, Junior All Blacks test, do a Black Ferns Wallaroos test, then a Wallabies All Blacks test. Have the 3 across. And honestly, I think that actually probably you get more of a buy-in from just sports fans than if you've got the Queensland Reds playing the Auckland Blues and the Waratahs playing the Crusaders. Because really, we weren't Super Round on Friday night, and you're a Reds fan and you were cheering every time the Crusaders scored. And on Saturday night, I was cheering every time the Blues scored.
That's part of the fun. I think that's why Super Round worked in of itself, because if you're not barracking for your team, you're barracking against the team that everyone hates. So everyone was backing the Blues.
But it's the Crusaders. Everyone hates the Crusaders. Come on, the Tahs need a leg up.
It was their patch, but we're sort of getting off the point. I think there's a way to do the Anzac Day Test. If it falls on the weekend, it'd be phenomenal to fold it into Super Round. I love the idea of, if it's on a Tuesday or Wednesday, you follow that system that was put forward on Inside Line, which is bang, bang, bang. You play 3 games on that Anzac Day, regardless of where it falls, and make it just a huge event at a stadium that's maybe not like a massive one like an Accor or an Optus, but like a place where people can filter in and out and constantly be getting in around the action. I think I'm a bit jealous now that we've been to Christchurch and seen how close you are to the pubs and the clubs. Yep. You're within a 3-minute walk of a beautiful cold pint, and that's the way to do it. So we can spitball for probably another couple of hours on this, Mitch. But
100%.
I'm excited.
My last point,
though.
I am. My last point, if we're going to do it, I think we go all in, and it's one off Bledisloe. Bledisloe's on the line. If we do Anzac Day, no longer a 3-test, 4-test series. We play at Anzac Day, winner takes all. That makes it more of a, for mine, a bit more of a spicy competition than what we've seen. Like it's impossible to get the Bledisloe Cup off a team that holds it. You've got to win 3 tests. It's ridiculously hard to do. Even on a 4-test series, you've got to win 2 or 3 of them. So it makes it really, really hard. I would love to see a bit more of competition with a one-off test, like the Calcutta Cup. They play that one-off every year, and it swaps hands all the time. If we're going to do this ANZAC test and it's not going to be part of like the rugby championship when you've got like your proper international stars available and whatnot, put the Bledisloe on the line as well and just have the winner take it all. And then we'll start to see it swap hands more frequently.
Yeah, it's a weird one because part of me wants to win it back properly.
But we're never going to win it back properly.
I think
we're never going to win it.
I think we will. It will happen in our lifetime, and we've still got plenty of years to go, I hope. So
we'll be 99 on our deathbed, and the Wallaroos will win, and then we'll just die, and we'll just go.
Oh god, it's a funny one because like, didn't Australia change the rules when we held it back in the 90s and early noughties to make it tougher to get it off? So we'll just put that behind us. I think something should be on the line. If it's not the Bledisloe, then like an ANZAC trophy or something that's equally meaningful. But yeah, I would love to get my hands on the Bled, Mitch.
Yeah, it would be so good. I don't actually remember the Wallabies holding it. Really, it's been such a long time. No, let's keep moving though. We've got so much more to talk about. We have spent a long time on Super Round, but just a reminder, if you haven't listened to our content, haven't seen what we've done over Super Round, go back. It's on Instagram. It's on our Patreon feed as well. So do go back and check that out before you move on. Let's talk Wallaroos. And so we mentioned it then, but the Wallaroos did play a test match against the Black Ferns on ANZAC Day. It was the first time these two teams have played each other this time of year. It was the first time we've had an official test match played on ANZAC Day. Not the result that the Wallaroos would want. It was at the end, I think it was 40-5 was the final score.
That sounds
pretty comprehensive win to the Black Ferns.
Yeah, it was, look, some really good signs in the first half. Great fight. Obviously, we get over for a nice early try through Pesipalo Sakona, but it looked like every Wallaroos Black Ferns test I've watched in the past. Oh God, ever. Like there's been some games where it's a wee bit closer, but like since the 2022 doubleheader. In Adelaide, where we were really close. I think the margin was 9 points. That was a BN Tarita masterclass on debut. We haven't been within striking distance. And again, we are backtracking 8 days now, so you have to bear with us. But the physicality, speed of ball is chalk and cheese compared to Wallaroos and Black Ferns. And I agree with a lot of the sentiments that have come out following Pack 4 that the Wallaroos program has gone backwards. And it's a tough thing to say because we love them. God knows we spend a lot more time on the Wallaroos because they bloody deserve it and we love watching them. But the quality of performances for mine has dropped off, and I can't help but feel that's because of the coaching uncertainty. I was devastated to see, Mitch, a job ad for the Wallaroos head coach role appear on Sports People, like a sports recruiting site, and the closing date was May 14. So how far back has this process been kicked? This can has gone so far down the road, and we're in a position now where we probably won't have an announcement around the full-time Wallaroos coach until June. That is unacceptable when we've known for almost a year now that Joe Yap wasn't going to be there.
Look, I don't want to sort of support RA in any way in this process because they've fucked it up. They really have. They should have had this system sorted out in the off season. So on January 1st, there should be a Wallaroos coach appointed and a head of performance, which is what they're currently doing. From what it sounds like, they're actually trying to appoint like a technical head of women's sport in Rugby Australia. So this person's going to oversee both the Wallaroos and the Sevens program and Super W and all of the women's game in Australia. And it's almost like a Peter Horn type role for the women's game, which is a great idea in general, but that should have been sorted last year. Like we've had heaps of time to get that role sorted. For them to say, we're going to wait for this person to be appointed and then we'll look at who they want to bring in as the Wallaroos coach is unacceptable. Is unacceptable when the Wallaroos have now played 5 tests this year to start off their season and they don't have a coaching staff. They've got interim coaches who knows? This new coach is going to come in and probably clean house. All of those coaches will no longer be employed by Rugby Australia. We have just wasted 5 tests. We talk about it in the men's game about you never want to see a coach hand out jerseys to players just for the sake of it, that haven't earned it, that just are given a Wallabies jersey because we want to see what they can do. Like that is disrespectful to the legacy of the Wallabies jersey. The way that Rugby Australia has handled this process has allowed the team to play 5 tests with an interim coach who is not taking a shot at him, but isn't up to a head coach level in an international game at this point, is unacceptable. And it is disrespectful to the players. There was no way that they were going to perform well against the Black Ferns when you consider the prep that they had. They had 7 days to come off a test in the USA to come back and then play this test match. Like, the Wallabies would never do that. They would never set up that tight a turnaround with that much travel involved. Like, we can say, Phil Waugh and Rugby Australia can say all they want in the media about how we prioritise women's rugby. We want to see them do well. We want to do this. But the reality is they're not. They're just thinking commercially. It's bullshit.
Yeah. The writing's on the wall, to be honest. And I'm looking forward to whatever position is taken around women's technical director. I want to see great people involved in the program, but
I'm really looking forward to seeing you announced as Wallaroos head coach. And Desi Miller needs to be playing fullback.
I would do an atrocious job, and I'm an appalling coach. Luckily, we can just sit here and give our 2 bobs. No, but like, for real, like, it's so clear that they don't care. It's so clear that Rugby Australia does not prioritise the Wallaroos program at this point. And it's not that it has to be far and above every other of the many balls that are in the air. It is a tough role. Administration is something that we only have a tiny peephole into, and we'll probably never understand the finances and what's at scale. I can put my hand up and accept that. What I can't accept is there not being a clear plan to replace your coach when you know that they're gone. When you knew that Joe Yap was leaving, and you know that you're building towards a home World Cup where you have set yourself the goal of being in a semi-final. We look further. We look like we've regressed from 2022 with on-field performances. And that doesn't fly for me. Our athletes are too good, and they're not being paid enough, and they will get snapped up by rival codes if it continues. I would not begrudge them at this moment. I would be devastated to lose our elite athletes. But frankly, when your season gets flipped around on its head, we have no Super W for them to prepare in. You get thrown into a test cauldron, and off we go to take on the Black Ferns after coming back from Tornado Alley. What do you think is going to happen? Long hard looks in the mirror, and we know people who are involved in this program. They work hard, but they're not the ones making these bad decisions. And those people need to maybe just dust off the RMs, have a look at themselves, and go, maybe this isn't in the best interests of developing an elite women's team and women's pathway for us to have success in 2029. But that's my soapbox.
There are people that we know who were involved with the Wallaroos in the previous administration under Joe Yap and her coaching staff, who went to the World Cup, who at the end of that competition were let go. Were told that you do not have a role with women's rugby in Australia moving forward. And yet they have replaced them with other people, and these people would have stayed on. Like, why would you do that? Why would you remove people who know the system, know the players, know what they're building towards, who want to continue in that role, because you have a new coach coming in 6 months' time, when there's 5 tests to be played in that period? Like, you're going completely cold turkey with a completely new coaching staff and a completely new administration, and you just completely throw that relationship out with the players as well. It's not good enough. And nothing will come of it. There should be an investigation into how this has been handled, but there won't be. And it is not good enough. And the fact is, like, the NRL, unfortunately, the NRLW, they continue to kick goals. We've just played a game 1 of State of Origin women's this week, and the amount of support, the amount of advertisement, the amount of coverage that game has gotten compared to the Wallaroos. Chalk and cheese.
They had the biggest crowd for viewership on telly and online of the year. It wasn't an NRL game. It wasn't the ANZAC Day games between like the Roosters and the Dragons or whatever. It wasn't the grand final rematch. It was Women's State of Origin 1, had almost 1 million average viewers on Channel 9. It beat the Aussie rules. It reached over 2 million Australians. It is a phenomenal testament to what investment does. There was a great chat up in the UK with Ruby Tui on the Love of Rugby podcast, who highlighted just how big England's investment has been in the women's game since the 2017 World Cup, where they lost to New Zealand in the final. They invested, they went full time. They obviously lost that final in 2022 off the back of a red card and probably should have won it, to be honest. But look at that juggernaut now. That England team is untouchable. Their women are elite. They are global superstars, not just in the UK. We watch women's rugby and we think Ely Kildunn, we think Hannah Bonneman, we think all these stars that have come out of it. And it's because they cared. They put money in early, they invested, and now they have a product that is commercially a juggernaut and also professionally. So we're already so far behind the eight ball. But surely something can be done. Some care can be put into this program where we support athletes with the vast amounts of money that are now available to Rugby Australia. And we know they're going to tie it up and say, oh, we can't spend it anymore. Blah, 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 blah.
Sorry, Phil Ward's just got a bonus. He's got a bonus for last month and this month combined. And he's got a bonus coming next month as well.
But show us you care. Show us you care about the women's game and give us a path forward. Because right now, like you and I are despairing about where this program's going. So let's try and pivot to something nicer, but I think people need to just stop. We will
talk about Super Rugby in a second, but just the one thing I want to finish off on is we have a world-class athlete in our Wallaroos team at the moment. Desi Miller is probably the most gifted women's player in Australia at the moment. Like if you watch that Rivals competition that was on Fox Sports over the last few weeks, Desi Miller outperformed both the AFL and the NRLW players in that competition single-handedly. She was faster, she was more skillful, she was stronger. She should be the face of women's rugby at the moment. Like you put her in the AFL, she'd be the best player there. They would absolutely put her on every single poster. You put her in the NRLW, she'd be captain of New South Wales, she'd be captain of the, what do they call themselves? Not the what's the women's NRL team? I don't know. The Australian one, the Hockeyroos or something.
Oh, the Gillaroos,
Yeah, whatever they are. But she'd be the captain of them and she'd be on every billboard. Like you would know who she was. She would be a household name. We have her in our system. Let's promote the crap out of her because she's an absolute rocket. She's a great person to chat to. She's an all-rounded athlete. She can do everything. And she's the best player in our system at the moment. And you just don't hear anything from her. And that's just not fair because you put her in New Zealand, you put her in England, you put her in even Canada, and she'd be like world known. She'd be up there with Alona Mar, I reckon, is that popular around the world as an inspiration to girls coming through. In Australia, she's underutilized and people don't know who she is. And that's a crime.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Let's see it. It's going to be really interesting to see how the Wallaroos fold into Super W from now, because that's a little further down the line. I think that kicks off in a bit over a month. I want to say maybe later down the line, like towards end of July. But still just the 5 games to contend with. They're doing memberships. I've seen the teams starting to push out like Tahs, Reds, Brumbies, get your Super W memberships, yada yada, which is great. So I'm looking forward to picking up one of those. But we've got a very interesting year ahead for the women's game. Almost as interesting as our Super Rugby ladder, which is looking very tight. Very tight at the moment.
I don't know if fans could tell at this point, but I have stalled talking about the Waratahs this week as much as possible. If you're tuning in on YouTube, I'm sitting here wearing a Lions jersey, which is as close as I will get to a Reds jersey at the moment. But bloody hell, this has been a rough week to be a Waratahs fan. Let's get into it, though. Let's rip the Band-Aid off. And so Friday night, the Waratahs were hosting the Western Force at home. Final scores 2017 to the Western Force. I can't remember what the actual stat was. I think this was the first win that the Force have got over the Waratahs in Sydney since 2020, I want to say, even before.
That sounds close. I reckon 2017 or 2018. I'm going to refer
possibly
to our doyen, Nathan Williamson, as I dig through some stats here. I reckon that sounds about right. It's been almost 10 years.
And like, hats off, the Force deserve that one. I will say it now at the beginning of this segment that I thought that the score flattered the Waratahs dramatically. And if they had managed to score on full time and somehow either get a losing bonus point or even do the unthinkable and go ahead, it would have been a crime. It would have been a crime. The Western Force deserved this game massively. The Waratahs were shit.
Yeah, Waratahs weren't great. The handling was appalling. Proper dicks for fingers stuff. No one could catch it. And I think there were 30 turnovers in the game, by and large. So it was a game that staggered and stalled. It was like getting your old Ford Lancer when you're on your L's, just sticking and stalling. It was appalling. So very happy to not ever watch this game back. But for the Force, so vitally important because it does keep them in the hunt. And I think it's hilarious that they're still 10th on the ladder because of other results. But they've got this win, and it's a massive result. For me, this was not so much about the Force shining and excelling, but it was doing what they do best, which is dominate territory off the boot. Ben Donaldson had another great game and is currently the Form 10, I think you'd have to say, in Australian Super Rugby. But it's the Dylan Peach show for me. It's not just the 2 tries. He continues to outshine all other back three when it comes to physicality, when it comes to his aerial threat, when it comes to his work rate off the deck. He, for me, is just a lock for a Wallabies wing spot because he's almost like a 9th forward. He was so good at Allianz.
If this game was played last week and there'd be a few Kiwi commentators asking, could Dylan Peach play 7? Could he play 8? That was definitely the theme in Super Round last weekend with the Lesser Fainganuku move. But yeah, you're right. Like I must admit, or I must correct myself, I guess. I've probably gone into this, and if people haven't seen the game, they must think that the Western Force played remarkably well. They didn't. This was a shit game. It was probably the Force were the better of the two. The Force had so many opportunities in this game. There was at one point in the second half where the Force had like 15 minutes and 4 entries to the Waratahs 22, and they didn't come away with points. Like, it was like, you need to come away with something soon. Like, you've had that much possession and territory and you're not doing anything with it. To their credit, like, if you listen to the post-match presser, Simon Cron reckons there was 1 or 2 incidences where they actually got over the line and Angus Gardner was like, no, I've seen it up. No way. Not even going to look at it, where the players were like, no, it's down. Look, I've got it down. And he wouldn't go to TMO for it. But yeah, it wasn't like a incredibly good performance by the Force and a shit-ass performance by the Waratahs. But in saying that, out of the two, the Force were a lot better and they took the opportunities that they had. I guess the poor element from the Waratahs was that when you look across their line, how many Wallabies players they have, how many first-choice international experience players they've got, and they had very, very limited minutes in the Force 22 and next to no possession the whole game.
Yeah, well, they just got strangled out, right? Like, partially of their own volition, dropping the ball, not being able to execute. But the Force did such a great job at keeping them down there into the field. I think it's the 70-30 territory split at the end of this game, the whole game, which is very unusual. But, like, admittedly, the Force attack was very one-dimensional. So, like, aside from Ben Donaldson splitting the line or some, like, nice Matt Greeley hands to put away Peachy, it was very route one, up the guts. And the Tahs, to their credit, were solid enough in defence. But like when the Force roll out with 13 line breaks and only scored 20 points, like the completion is terrible. So hats off to some good scramble from the Tahs, but the less said about this game, the better. It's left both teams in an interesting position where they're still technically in the hunt for the top 6, but it's very much now on a knife edge for the Tahs. I feel like they are rapidly dropping form, and no one sort of summed that up better than watching Joseph Akusa-Suaalii on his return. He takes that beautiful specky off the highlight, the start, and everyone goes, hey, great, he's back. And then he touched it, 10 more times and made 2 meters. Like, it was a hard watch seeing him back.
That'd be generous if he touched it that many times. He went missing in this game again. I think some key stats that sum up how inept this Waratahs attack is at the moment. They had 4 entries into the Force's 22. The Force conversely had 14 entries into theirs. Like, that's horrible. And they made 1 line break to 13. Like, you look across the Force the Waratahs back line, they're back 3. You know, they've got Kellaway, Jorgensen, and who was on the other wing? Sid the Kid, Sid Harvey, yep. And then Joseph Akuso-Suaalii in the centres. Like, these guys should be scoring tries for fun. They are that good. They should be making line breaks every second ball carry, and yet they've got 1. The Waratahs just do not know how to play rugby at the moment. They do not know how to use players in their back line. And it's dire situations now. You look forward to the next, 4 rounds left of the competition. They probably won't win another game.
It's not looking good. And sorry, when I said 10 carries, I actually meant 10 involvements from Suoli'i.
Right, I was going to say, I think he had 2 carries.
Three carries,
2 or 3.
and he made 6 tackles and he missed 1. So like a rough night for your marquee man. A quick hats off to Angus Scott-Young, 31 tackles, huge shift defensively. Someone had to with all those tackles they had to make.
Like they made nearly 300 tackles.
Yep,
260 something tackles they made. It was crazy.
It was brutal.
Crazy.
It was brutal.
285 tackles they made this week. Dan McKellar said last week that they made upwards of 280 as well. Like 2 weeks in a row, 3 weeks in a row, actually, if you throw in the week before that. They're just not playing with enough possession. They can't hold on to the pill long enough to build pressure. They're just letting teams into the game by dropping the pill and just turning it over simply. They're just playing so badly at the moment. And I mean, to their credit, the Western Force took the points when they were on offer, but they probably also should have put that game away with 20 to go.
Oh, for sure. And like it ties back to what we said at the start. Terrible game. The Force were less terrible. The right people stood up at the right times. I think Coach.
I'm so glad
Dan
this
McKellar,
game wasn't on free to air.
Yeah. Imagine if this is a big celebration.
But honestly, how many people would be tuning in? How many league fans tuning in and go, oh, Suoli'i versus Lomax, this is going to be great. And to watch them both, like to his credit, I actually thought Lomax was decent. Like he wasn't groundbreaking amazing, but he had involvements. He went off his wing a few too many times, I think, looking for the ball a bit too much for a winger. Like that's probably something where he's actually overplaying his hand a bit and he needs to learn when to inject himself and when to go looking for the ball. But to his credit, like he's happy to get in the tight stuff. He's happy to truck it up in the center of the field. He joined a ruck or two. He joined a maul at one point. Like he's going for it in the air. He's doing everything we want him to do. And so he's doing nothing.
Certainly doing more. Yeah, he outpointed him in a pretty bland affair. I wanted to highlight a couple of these quotes post game from Dan McKellar, which I just thought were hilarious.
I wish I was there.
They were savage. Tongue lashing, bullied at the breakdown. We got squeezed to death, physically dominated in and around the ruck. Force came here with a pretty bland plan and it worked. We didn't throw a punch until we were down by 10. I was like, oh, it's so nice. So nice to see McKellar with the gloves off. He must be so frustrated with this team. My
best quote from him was at the very end of the press conference when I think it was Johnny Drennan asked him, what are you most disappointed about that? And he's like, I won't tell you, and then gets up and walks out of the room. That was it. That was the end of the press conference.
The whole game.
And Matt Phillip was just like, oh, thanks everyone for coming.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks. Sorry about Dad. He's a bit angry tonight.
Yeah. Dad's home from work. A few too many beers. I would too after that performance. Less said about it, the better. Well done, Force. They keep their season alive. Tahs hanging by the thread of the thread. I don't have anything else to add, frankly.
No, neither do I really. Let's move on to bigger and brighter things, and that is the Brumbies, for the first time since 2018, have lost 3 games in a row. The Wills have well and truly come off. The Reds have gone 30-21 against the Brumbies. It was being played at Suncorp, and Ben O'Keefe was the ref. But, a win's a win for the Reds. Well done to them.
Kick your threes. It's as simple as that. They score 3 tries apiece. And for the first time in forever, actually, no, not the first time in forever, probably the first time since the Reds last played the Brumbies, they've decided to kick their threes, convert. Harry McLaughlin-Phillips, hats off. He has come a long way in this season, did a great job running the cutter, and they did enough. I don't think the game was particularly spectacular as far as skills concerned, but it was gritty. It was physical. I thought that the Wallabies from both teams finally stood up after sort of higgledy-piggledy seasons to see Bobby V go bananas, Wilson and McWright. Salakai Loto had a great shift. Peripheral players like Josh Fluke had good hands, but it felt like a great test audition. And I think the Reds are now the Aussie team with the hot hand.
I'll stay on the positive for now. There are some things I said in our post chat our group chat just before we hit record, or a little bit earlier today. I was like, if this was the best of Aussie going up against each other this weekend, I'm concerned about July. When you compare it against the Crusaders and Hurricanes, we look bad. But let's be positive. Let's be positive. We're a positive Australian rugby podcast. And like the Reds, they looked good. And as you said, they're actually starting to take points when they're on offer. That's something that Les Kiss has learnt, obviously, in the last few years as coach. And to his credit, like this is a gutsy performance, and it's the performance they needed. There were some questions asked about them earlier in the season when they went to Canberra. They got that win late. Did they deserve it? Was the whole knock-on incident with Felipe Dalgunu. To win this one by 9 points, that's massive. And to really out-muscle the Brumbies, who we've known have been the benchmark in physicality in Australia for the last few seasons, like it was really good performance from the Reds forward pack.
Yeah, and that's what we touched on with like the big boy standing up and delivering. It's been a while since we've seen Fraser McWright dominate a Super Rugby game. He's sort of been there and thereabouts this season, but this one was like a no missed tackles from 21, 3 pilfers, a couple of key involvements with ball in hand. The set piece still a little bit funky, but I think that a lot of their sort of younger players in the pack particularly have come along in leaps and bounds and added a lot off the bench. So I'm talking like Nick Bloomfield in the 18 jersey as a reserve tight head coming on, making an impact. Vaiatu Latu coming on and making an impact in the 20 when he came on late in the piece to shift some bodies around. There were great signs physically. And that's, like, for me, that's always the sticking point for an Australian team, whether it's men's or women's on the international stage. Can an Aussie pack dominate their rivals? I think the Reds showed signs that their core players can form part of a Wallaby team that can be dominant, but it entirely hinges on consistency, right? So Salakai Loto, again, taking names, for me, their best forward. Wilson, good without being great. So there's still room for improvement, but I certainly liked it. And like I was a very late call up to go down to this game sort of in person. We rounded up a wee group, ended up sitting in.
I thought you were about to say you were a late call up for the 10 jersey and you turned Les down.
No. I think Les is fully aware of my physical incapabilities from a couple of press conferences. So I'm not rushing in there anytime soon. We're like sitting up in a good spot. Like tickets are $25. So we rolled down with an hour's notice. Great energy around the stadium. It's still far from being full, Mitch, at Suncorp, but I reckon they're sort of nudging for that game. I reckon they were probably nudging 18 to 19,000, and that's with the rain on. So not too bad. And like people are excited. Reds fans are excited about what's going on there. And after this, if I look at their season as a whole so far, they have dropped some unforgivable games already this season, like losing to the Force at Suncorp.
Mate, the Tahs made them look shit round one. You made the Tahs look good.
Exactly. And like you think about those two games plus a super point loss to the Blues, really they're only like they probably should be 8-2, not 6-4. And it feels like they're now playing catch up. They're now delivering what should have been their game at the start. So I've got pretty high hopes for this Red side. I still think a home final is too far of a stretch, because if we look at that table after the results, they're now, I think, 2 wins adrift with 4 to play. I can't see them making it up.
Yeah, and that's what's going to be really interesting. And I think what is probably holding them back a little bit is both the inavailability of Tom Liner and Carter Gordon. Like if you had either of those guys last week, this week they got the job done without them. But I think last week, if they had Carter Gordon, they probably win that game. No disrespect to Harry McLaughlin-Phillips, but there were like his running game, like he was the difference in that first round against the Brumbies earlier in the season. Like he kept them in it. He scored that try late. Like he's adding more of a running game to this Reds attack than what the Ben Volavola or Harry McLaughlin-Phillips is doing. And so him getting fit as soon as possible will be great. To see whether, Tate McDermott can come back as well, whether he, makes it for the end of the season, can actually, dethrone either Kalani Thomas or Louis Wertron. Like that would be a bit horrible for them if either of those guys, if, he comes back and then plays finals because he's fit and it's like, sorry, you played well all season, but he's a Wallaby, so get stuffed. That would suck. But as you said, like this Reds team, like they've put themselves in a box seat. They're now in 4th on the competition ladder. And that's the best thing you want. Like, they go to extra point last time. It was a bit of a, do or die moment there for Fraser McReight at that breakdown against the Blues. You kind of have to go for it, I guess. You also kind of don't in those situations. They could have very well won that game. They could have. We could be sitting here talking about how great they are. We kind of are, but like, they've been good. They've done what they need to do. There's plenty to be excited about as Queensland fans. So get down there and support them.
Yeah, they've got a Friday game. They've got a shorter turnaround. They're hosting the Chiefs, so that's the real test now. Like, that's your watermark. Can you match it against the consistently most ferocious pack in Super Rugby, in my book, for the Chiefs, plus all their weapons out wide? If the Reds can do a job at home against that Chiefs side and cement themselves as top 4, potentially pushing for top 3, again, I still think it's a bridge too far, but a win would really make people stand up and take notice. So Reds, great, important win, Mitch, but the wheels now really starting to come off for the Brumbies. What is going on, and why have they found themselves now with a losing record after such a good start to the season?
Yeah, I think it's a good question to ask, and I'm sure the coaches are sitting there in Canberra, sort of scratching their heads, wondering, where it all went wrong. For mine, it feels a little bit like it's quite a similar problem to the Waratahs in effect. I think it's the backs that just aren't clicking as well, and they're not unleashing the weapons outside that they have. When you actually look at some of the stats, like the breakdowns that the Brumbies won, they won 112 rucks and they only lost 4. So the big boys are doing what they need to do at breakdown time. When you've got the likes of, like Rory Scott, Bobby V and Nick Frost, those guys doing their things, and then you bring on Lukey Reimer to have an impact at the breakdown. Like, those guys are good enough to secure their own ball, yet again, come in and have an impact on the opposition breakdown as well. I think it hurt them when Luke Reimer went off injured in this game. I think that was a key turn for, he's good for 3 or 4 turnovers in a half, even if he only plays 20 minutes. So they probably could have used him late to try and get the ascendancy back, for him to get crumpled in that tackle and to walk off. Like, I must admit, I thought they were going to have to carry him off. Like, he did not look good when he went down, and he didn't look good walking off either.
You're right. I think, like, Reimer's impact can't be overstated, but it's something that you touched on, like, just off air a little earlier, Mitch. Like, the forwards seem to be doing all the right things, but something's not clicking out wide. And it was earlier in the year, right? Like, Declan Meredith was the talk of the town, people screaming, Wallaby Bolter, rah, rah, rah. They're not anymore, because the Brumbies backline has stalled, and we're not seeing Corey Toole get his hands on the ball. Tom Wright's only freshly back into the mix, but he was largely kept out of things in his 100th game against the Reds. And Andy Muirhead, who was so effective at fullback at the start of the season, now isn't having the same impact on the wing. So, shout out quickly to David Feliuai. I'm not sure if we touched on him before, but he was excellent at 12. But again, it was all very direct. There didn't look like a lot of creativity, and the moves that they were throwing are very typical now, sort of league style block pattern, and defenses eat that up for lunch. So strange to see that from a Stephen Larkham side.
Yeah, and whether it is that Declan Meredith has had pressure put on him externally, and there's all this talk of him potentially being a Wallaby, being a front runner for that 10 jersey, whether that's gone to his head a little bit, like he's come off the pace. And to his credit, Tane Edmed has come back on and onto the scene the last few weeks and actually got the Brumbies back into games. Like, it was Meredith. Was it Edmed last night? I can't remember if it was him that got them. Was he on when they got back and got close?
I'll have to check the times.
You have to go back and check the times. Yeah,
I'll have a look now.
But he's giving them good impact off the bench, which he wasn't doing earlier in the year. So it's kind of weird to think that, first few rounds, like that draw loss really comes to mind when Meredith came off the bench and actually had that spark to turn things around when Clayton Thorne and Edmed started and didn't do too well, and they put up a massive scoreline gap there for the Brumbies to try and claw back in. But now it seems the script's reversed itself, that Meredith's starting and isn't doing too well, but Edmund's coming on and actually trying to get them back into the game. And last week he had some good involvements. Like, last week, honestly, Declan Meredith, like, we didn't talk about the game too much, but that's the sort of thing where you just need to write that off and be like, we're not even going to bother reviewing that, Decky. That was crap. You know it was crap. We know it was crap. You probably didn't. I don't know what it was. Was he a bit ill or something? The flight over didn't sit with him, but he just was having an off game last week.
No, it wasn't good, and like knocks your confidence around a bit. You missed touch twice. He gets hooked, sort of pretty early in the second half last week.
It was like 42nd minute or something.
Yeah, exactly. So
he didn't even come back on from half time.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, so Edmed again gets 20-ish minutes in this game. Goes all right. But yeah, I think there is a distinct lack of creativity in the Brumbies attack structure. And they kicked a lot better this week against the Reds, but they just look at the breakdown of their forward carries. Like, it is Bobby V carrying more than twice as much as the next bloke. There is very much a plan around, we give it to him first or second phase ball, comes around the corner, and then maybe we'll kick it, or maybe we'll boxy, or maybe we'll crash again through Feluai. They need something, because I didn't think I would be gloating about this. I was hoping and predicting that the Reds would finish above them in the ladder, like from our preseason chats. But for the Brumbies to be in a position where they could slide out of finals, that is no longer a pipe dream. It's a present and imminent danger. They are currently 5 points clear of the Drua, who have a good run home. The Brumbies also have a few games to play in Canberra, but it's starting to get a little nervous about how and we want them to be surging into finals, not scraping.
That's right. And I think one of the things, actually, just touching on what's going wrong with them, we spoke in our preview in the pre-season around the loss of Noah Alessio and then Ikitau at the centres. Like, that partnership was so good for them for so many years and probably kept them in games when they shouldn't have. And no disrespect to the centre pairing they have now. Like, Caden Pritchard is, he's doing well, but he's still a rookie. And he's no Ikitau. And so he's not, Feliwai's only been in the system for a year or so as well. So they're also not, gelling as well as we need them to. But you kind of look back on what the Brumbies had last season, and if they had maybe kept, and this is probably going to sound sacrilege a little bit, but they're probably kicking themselves that they don't have Debrasini in their system anymore. Because if they had, they could bring on a Debrasini instead of an Edmed currently. I know Debrasini's playing big minutes for the Waratahs and not doing so well, but he's the kind of guy that you can actually bring on and just straighten up the attack a little bit if it needs to be straightened, play it a little bit wider if it needs to be played a little bit wider. I think with both Edmed and Meredith they're so inexperienced together. Like, Edmed has caps as a Wallaby, probably shouldn't have those caps, but also hasn't played that well and played that much Super Rugby either to be considered like an experienced Super Rugby campaigner, like Debrasini has. And so then when you start to say that Declan Meredith is the starting fly half and you're bringing on an experienced Tane Edmed to sort of replace him and expecting him to turn things around, how much more would the Brumbies be doing? How much better would the Brumbies be looking right now if they had Noah Alessio steering them around?
Yeah, he's the poor bloke is very much that forgotten man. Rewind the clock to this time last year. He's the front runner. He's about to lace up against Fiji. It's one of the great what ifs, that 2025 season for Noah Alessio, rather. I think Caden Pritchard's been handling himself okay, but you're right, he is still inexperienced, fledgling partnerships. Just like the lack of a dominant 10 across a consistent season is there to see. And I do feel for Decky Meredith and for Tane, neither of whom have been able to really stamp themselves after a really sort of hot opening month for Meredith. Where he really was the cat's pajamas. It's slid a little off. So we'll have to watch that space. I think, though, however, I have some concerns about how much Ryan Lonergan's playing and the lack of development for like a Clayton Thorne or for people coming up behind him as far as halfbacks are concerned. Ryan Lonergan's key to things down there, but he playing 80 minutes week in, week out doesn't bode well for overall squad depth. And yes, he's important, but it also shows that there's not that trust in Thorne and the other halfbacks coming through. I think Dan Nelson, who's a former Australian under-20s skipper, is the third stringer there, and he's barely had a sniff. So something to keep an eye on.
I've raised this before in the season that the Brumbies kind of rest protocols just seems to be a little bit ad hoc, and very like some weeks they'll just rest everyone that they have to and say, oh yeah, RA made us rest everyone. It's like, well, you didn't have to do it all this week. You could have, rested Alan last week instead of this week when you're resting everyone. So you've got this B-side. But then also playing Ryan Lonergan 80 minutes every single week. Like, touch wood, it doesn't happen. But if he broke his leg next week, they probably don't win another game this season. That's how important I think he's been.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Yeah, and that's really worrying for them because, you can't rely on a player like that for so long. I mean, he's a great captain and he leads them around really well, but he's got to be fatigued. And, we start to talk around like who becomes that Wallaby 9. Jake Gordon's a bit off the pace. Tate McDermott's not available for selection at the moment. Nick White's gone. It pretty much feels like it's starting to be a two-horse race between Ryan Lonergan and Robinson over at the Force. What's his first name? Henry Robinson.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's another interesting sort of bolter chat, isn't it? Because he has been good. I don't know if he's sort of in a position to displace those three, even when they haven't been performing particularly well. But it shows that there is uncertainty, right? There is uncertainty around a Test 9. There is uncertainty around a Test 10. And frankly, I can't think of too many players that you pencil straight in to a Wallabies team out of Super Rugby at the moment. Maybe a handful. It's probably something we can look at in our midweek.
Well, talking about penciling Wallabies in, there's one scene that has come out of the game as an Australian rugby fan, not necessarily a horse in the fight, that I was very proud, very hopeful to see, was Les Kiss chatting with James Slipper at the end of the game. I don't know what they were talking about, but I'm wondering if Les Kiss, he didn't quite get on his knees and beg, but he was not far off it. Can you be available for selection in July, mate?
Get around the squad, Les. He's just saying he might be checking his super and saying, if you need a top up just before you call it quits, maybe this is the time to do it and cash in for Nations Championship. I think why wouldn't you have him around the squad? Like he again, serviceable, got through 40, 45, 50 minutes against the Reds. Like, why wouldn't you have him there if he's happy to be there? So let's watch that space. But I find it interesting now. Like Les is now 2 months out from Wallabies, I think. When's our first game against Ireland? There's around about the 2-month mark. It's in July, maybe end of June, if you're digging that one up now. So how do you juggle that? Like, how do you juggle that? Obviously, he's not in charge for the Nations Championships, but he'll be there and thereabouts. And he's still got a Reds team to steer through. It's going to be a fascinating couple of weeks and months for all these Aussie sides who mathematically remain in contention, but really...
4th of July.
The Reds are the 4th of July. Okay, cool. So 2 months. 2 months is when the Nations Championship starts. That is just coming up so quickly. Oh, my God. Men's Test rugby just around the corner. And only 3 weeks to go of the regular season, I believe. Is it 3 or 4 of Super Rugby?
That's a good question. Sorry, I just coughed as you asked that. It's 3 weeks. There's 16 rounds. And then we're into qualifying finals.
3 weeks to go. So it really is get on your horse time. And a massive weekend coming up now. Jeez. A couple of Trans-Tasman games. That's a big game. Tell you what, Force and Brumbies is massive now. I would not have picked this as a do-or-die game at this point last year.
If the Force win this, and we'll talk a bit more about this in our preview on Wednesday on our extra time coverage. But make sure you get into that. But if the Force win this, when was the last time the Force went a clean sweep of the Aussie teams in a season? I mean, we're talking about New Zealand.
Trivia.
When was it?
I have no idea. That's what I'm saying. It's great. Geez. You'd have to go back to sort of peak Sharpie, Moneyball.
It'd have to be early, first few years.
Drew
you'd
Mitchell,
think.
Young Poey, Young Jock. Jeez,
if they've ever done it, they might not have.
Let's do some digging. That's great socials content, actually. No one steal that and post it before us. We're going to find out.
Copyright scumbags.
Yeah. But seriously, that'd be huge, right? And a huge feather in the cap for Cronny, who is under pressure, right? Like he's coming towards the end of his contract. He's fighting for it. And despite all these great performances, they're still 10th. So they need to get a wriggle on. And if they do get up next week, so hypotheticals now, but that means the Brumbies are on the cusp on the cusp of missing out finals, which would be catastrophic given that they beat the Crusaders away and the Chiefs and the Blues at home. It's a cliff that I can't imagine them falling on. That would be 4 games in a row.
It would also mean that the Force are the best Aussie side.
Pretty much.
Because they've scalped everyone.
I'd say that. I'd say they're the scalpers. They're up there, thereabouts. Oh, God, yeah. Massive games coming up. Are the Reds playing the Force again?
They will. I think we play everyone again. So for the Force, they play round 13, which is round 13 this week. They go to, or coming week, they go to Canberra to play the Brums. Yep. Then they go to they go home and play the Reds. Then they have the Drua at home, and then they got the Tahs at home.
So they get 3. They get 3. The Force are on here. I think the Force could be on here.
They've got winnable games. This week will be the challenge, but the Reds are easy beats on the road. So 3 winnable.
Pull the other one. That's huge. Okay, so and this is something that we considered, right? Because we thought that the Force were going to have a good season preview wise, and we were devastated with some of their performances throughout the middle of the year where they just toss games away. But the signs were always there across the ditch, fighting hard against New Zealand teams in New Zealand that there was something brewing. With this run and 3 home games, we could be in a position to see the Force really push for that 6th spot. Regardless, even if they fall short, they finish 7th, they finish 8th, that is their best performance in a long time season-wise. They're on here. They're really on. And I got to say, I think I've got my Force hat on for that Canberra game. It would make things really, really interesting.
Well, the way the Brumbies played yesterday, there's a chance that they could do it. They'll need to show up physically. And we're getting ahead of ourselves. We'll talk all about this on Wednesday. But what they need to do is they need to execute. Yep. They need to take their opportunities and score points.
There's also a decent chance that the Brumbies just go, nah, fuck yeah, and they just pump them.
The Brumbies are back, baby.
In response to all this. So that's why you got to stick around and wait for the teams on Wednesday, where we'll tick off all that in extra time. Very quickly, we know we're running a little over, Mitch, but under 20s rugby championship.
Well, just quickly, one other thing before we jump off. It's been a few weeks since we've done an update on our fantasy and
God, I'm
tipping.
so bad about fantasy stuff.
Oh, it's so bad. But well done to Lasty24 who's taken top spot. Gibbs in seconds, dropped down this week, and Shaney's in 3rd. So well done for those guys on the fantasy front. On the tipping front, we have, bear with me, I'll just get our ladder up. Oh, I've gone up 6 spots into 9th.
Hey, there we go.
That's the 12th. Hold on, that's the whole round. How do I get to... Maybe it is the leaderboard. Laura 89, or Lauro, sorry, 89, got the yellow cap this week into 1st place, followed very closely by Dan Murray, and then old mate Gigi is in 3rd place. So well done to all those people. I'm up into 9th, so I've had a good round this week in the tipping. And I won a few yellow caps, it looks like, so I'll take that.
We'd love to see that. And thank you again for your support across fantasy and tipping. It's been awesome. And frankly, we don't give it enough airtime. So that is something we will look to try and do a bit better as we head into the international side of things and, of course, Super Rugby finals. But we touched on it a little earlier. Under 20s is on at the moment. It's on at some diabolical times in South Africa. The Aussies...
This is why South Africa are on in Super Rugby. Can I just reiterate that?
No one's missing Chiefs v Cheetahs.
Well, no one's missing Waratahs versus the Stormers at 3 a.m. on a Sunday morning or a Saturday Kings. Or a Monday morning even.
Force v Kings somewhere outside Port Elizabeth. Oh, my days. I think this was one of the hardest watches ever, the second 40 of this game. So the Junior Wallabies go down to the Baby Blacks in the opener of the Junior TRC. It was devastating. I was actually very, very upset. 34-29 after the Aussies led 24-12 at halftime. 2 yellow cards against the Wobblies in the second half, and ultimately the Kiwis did enough. They scored an important try about 12 minutes from time to go ahead after scores were level sort of midway through the second half. And we let slip a golden opportunity because it is such a short tournament. And it might be the only rugby championship that we get to watch for the next few years.
It's very true, actually, very true. But this was a really hard watch. Like as you said, there some ill discipline in the second half, but some really tough calls, I thought. And like I don't want to ref bash. I don't want to, be horrible against referees, but there was some calls in this game that was just questionable at best. Like red card, there's a lot of talk going around it. Yeah, it wasn't a great clean out, but does it deserve a red? Like there was a lot of mitigation in that. If you haven't seen it, go and check it out on Stan Sports. Basically, I think it was it Leo Jacks, our winger, comes in and cleans out one of the Baby Blacks second rowers.
On the other wing, Cooper Waters. 53 minutes in. It was a tough call. I think it probably could have been yellow. But also, I think it's more egregious by seeing what the Baby Blacks got away with at the ruck as well.
Yeah, there was another call a little bit later on where they pretty much actually wasn't even in a ruck. It was at the same. It was just an open play. It was a tip tackle where the same thing happened, and for some reason in that instance, like in this one, the referee was just straight away like, "That's red. He's landed on his face. Red card. Get him off. 20 minutes. Dealt with it quickly." Hardly went to the TMO, and in the other one, he like mitigated it down by the fact that the Australian player put his arm out and didn't land on his face, but would have. It's like that is the exact same thing that happened in the other one. So questionable decisions there. And then the other yellow card I thought was really tough as well, because the scrum half is at the back of the ruck, makes a tackle, is lying there, goes to roll away. He rolls to he rolls one way. Hard to say, with the way the field's facing, rolls one way, but the player coming in to clear him out would have run straight over the top of him. So he rolls back the other way to get out of that player's way, and he's deemed to be loitering around the back of a ruck in a line break opportunity and gives him a yellow card straight away. Like literally 40 seconds or something, a minute at most after the red card's given. So the junior Wallabies go down to 13 men, and the Blacks score like 3 tries in the space of 5 minutes or something to catch up and then go ahead.
Yeah, not much Gussie Grover can do there. Like he's basically trying not to get trampled on, and he goes, "Yellow card, see you later." So I mean, but we're just whinging Aussies, right? So we're going to get around it, guys. They will back it up. By the time this comes out, they will have already played the second game that's happening overnight against the Baby Box, so against the host South Africa, who I'm pretty sure had a pretty handsome win over the RGs in their first game. I have a quick look back that now, I think they managed to get up. Oh, where's this gone?
It is really hard. It's really hard to find. It's really hard to find results for some reason. Like you even type in junior under 20s rugby championship and it comes up with just the World Cup. Like I don't know why it's so hard to find the results or the highlights for these games.
I've just dug it up. The South Africans smashed the RGs 48-21. They led 36-0 at halftime. So our boys probably in for a tough challenge. We've done okay against the Box. I remember we beat them in the TRC last year, but then we had them in the opening pool game of the World Championship, and they put almost 70 on us. So this is a pretty tough game ahead for the. Is it still Chris Whitaker running the show there?
Yep.
At the under 20s. So like again, so many exciting talents. It's well worth going back, watching a mini game, catching some highlights. A lot of the players that you would have seen playing Super Rugby Oz. Or Super Rugby Next Gen are floating there and thereabouts, and a few super players as well with full caps, Leo Jacques, Finn Mackay, those kinds of blokes. So do get around them and support them. The more
and Zachy Fittler is getting his debut as well, which is going to be interesting.
That's pretty
he's played
exciting.
well for the Tahs. Yeah.
He's solid. He's a solid customer. Solid customer. So we'll keep an eye on him, and we'll touch on that result in extra time. Mitch, is there anything else, other business to attend to?
I think we've rolled for ages on this one. So if you've got to this part of the podcast, thanks for listening. Thanks for getting in. Thanks for supporting us and helping us to do all that we can to cover the game that we love and the game that is played in heaven. I'm Mitch. You're Lockie. Thanks for getting past the podcast. We'll be back on Wednesday. If you're not a Patreon subscriber, we'll be back in your feed next weekend to review all the action from Super Rugby Pacific round 13. We'll see you then. Bye.
Bye.
We're not going to France for the croissants.